Yo, what's up guys? It's your boy Mike Hollow and I'm back with another kind of a rant or just kind of pointing something out. One of my subscribers commented on one of my recent videos and asked me to talk about the flawless block system, which was actually something I wanted to do but I kept on forgetting about because there's just so many other things to talk about with this game. The reason I want to talk about the flawless block mechanic is because I feel like it was implemented really poorly. It's really unfair on some characters, it's too fair on some characters, and I'll break down what I mean. So in this game most characters have a string where you can flawless block in between or at the end of the string, which gives the other character advantage on you. You can flawless block and just outright punish, or you can flawless block and do up 2 or up 3. Up 2 will give you a launcher combo and up 3 will just knock them back basically, but they'll still be standing. And then you have strings. You have some characters, or you have one character in particular, Cabal, where they have no flawless blockable strings, and this is really where the problems begin with this mechanic. But there's a whole array of problems with how this mechanic was implemented. It's not very consistent, and it really does benefit some people, and it really hurts other characters. So whenever I think about the flawless block mechanic, I always think about Third Strike. And even though they're wildly different, I think it's good to bring up Third Strike, and you can even bring up Just Guard and Soul Calibur. But I'll focus on First Strike just because when Third Strike implemented the mechanic, it had like a degree of depth to it. You had the standard parry you would do if you read an opponent, you thought they were going to jump in on you, or you knew they were going to do a certain attack, you'd parry them and you'd punish. Then you had red parries where you could be blocking and mid-block you can parry. Now to do that is extremely difficult. It's not something that you see very often. Even at the highest level of Third Strike, you don't really see those sort of things. And I felt like that was a really cool layer of depth to have to something like that. The issue that I have with Mortal Kombat is that the flawless block mechanic is very one-dimensional and it's not very fair. With Third Strike, everyone could do a parry and everyone could do a red parry, and it made characters like Necro or Q that were considered quite poor, in the right hands they were very, very, very dangerous, because if the player was good enough, they could red parry you, or they could parry you consistently. We've all seen the famous Daigo parry on Justin Wong when he was using Chun-Li against Ken. We've seen Karuda, I think that was his name, the Q player that was just, destroying people. I know Urian was a good character in that game, but RX's Urian was insane just because he'd parry your shit and then put you in Aegis reflectors, what seemed like unblockables. Sorry for the baby crying in the background, by the way. So you had all these things that made characters viable. Now the problem with MK11 is that the flawless block mechanic doesn't work anything like that. The flawless block mechanic works in very specific places, so you can't use it whenever you want. So say for instance Baraka's 1-1-2, the end of that string is flawless blockable, which is fine because that string acts as a launcher, or it acts as the beginning of something that could extend into a longer combo, that's fine. And I feel like that's something that should have been sort of pushed across the board. If you can do a launcher and you're just doing it on block on someone, you should be able to flawless block it. That's not the case in Mortal Kombat. It's the case for some characters, most characters it's not. The other problem is that what's the word that I want to use? The way it's balanced is bad, and what I mean by that is that it's quite difficult to flawless block in the first place in a high pressure match. It's very easy to just mash buttons, and what I mean by that is the other player, let's say they're using Jackie. I don't even know if Jackie has any flawless blockable strings, or if you can flawless block the ends of them. I'm going to assume you can. But let's say that you're looking for a flawless block. The other player, they might know you're looking for a flawless block, but because they're so difficult to do, or they're more difficult than what mashing is. So the other player is mashing away, doing Jackie's ridiculous block pressure. You've got to look for the right opportunity to flawless block. Now they could obviously read that and stop doing their pressure, and you could end up, doing something that gets you punished. But my biggest issue of that is that because it's difficult for some characters and not difficult for others, and this game's very mashy, it becomes very, very, very unlikely that you'll see a flawless block in a match. which kind of makes the whole thing kind of redundant. The fact that you can't just flawless block in between any string, it's kind of weird to me because it's a parry mechanic, and that's not to say that I want well, I mean, even if someone did flawless block in between every mechanic, every string, sorry, if they were to use up 2, up 3, they run out of meter very quickly. Obviously, if you're using that meter, then you're not going to be able to break away, and if they land a hit on you, you're in trouble. So there's going to be a risk in that. But even then, people can flawless block, and there should be some other applications you get, like added meter, or your meter comes back quickly, or I don't know. Like, I haven't thought through what I would put in place of what I believe to be a poor system and quite a bland system. But I think if you're going to add a parry mechanic to a game, it shouldn't be specific places are parryable. Because the problem with that, and the problem that NRS has caused, is that they're not being consistent, and they're not being fair. If you look at a character like Scarlet, you can flawless block pretty much every one of her strings. Any string she does in you can flawless block at some point and punish her for it. Now, I understand why, and it makes sense why they did that to Scarlet, because Scarlet is a keep away character. She is meant to be played at full screen. She does the bulk of her damage at full screen. So if she's doing the bulk of her damage at full screen, why is it that that she's, sorry, my girlfriend's just staring at me do this. Why is it that she's the only one that is punished up close? So you've got characters like Sonya, who you know is again can be played in a keep away style, and she can get up in your face and just mash buttons, and she doesn't have nearly as many flawless blockable strings as Scarlet does, not nearly as many easy to flawless block strings as Scarlet does. And it's just like, you know, what was your intentions here? It's like you created one character with the right intentions. Scarlet should have flawless blockable strings because she is a keep away character, but then on the flip side she shouldn't, because you didn't do it to anyone else. So all that happened was Scarlet suffered. It's like you made one character with an archetype in mind, and then you forgot with everyone else. And it's just a bit like, what the hell are you doing? Like, it's like they think of something. It's like, okay, that sounds like a good idea. That sounds like it adds a layer of depth to the game, and then they forget to do it with everyone else. And I say forget to do it with everyone else, but I just want to focus in on Cabal. Cabal is a character that has no unsafe strings. A lot of them start mid, and you can't flawless block any of his strings. Now imagine in Third Strike if there was a character that you couldn't parry. You see how dumb that is? But when it's Mortal Kombat, it's just accepted. And I think it's accepted because the player base has subconsciously accepted that this is inherently a stupid game. And most Mortal Kombat games, outside of them being fun in other aspects and you're looking really cool and having awesome story modes, Mortal Kombat competitively, from a competitive standpoint, I mean, you can't really take them seriously when they do stupid shit like that. And you know, I've got a couple friends that say to me, oh, you know, you got to give it time, but this is common sense sort of things. If you add a parry mechanic into the game, why would you make it so only one character has the ability to throw out strings as much as they want and have them be safe and not flawless block them? Doesn't really make any sense. So there isn't really too much to say about the flawless block mechanic. I feel like it's poorly implemented. Sometimes it causes weird hitbox issues. I was playing a Liu Kang player earlier, and I did 1-1-2, not on these videos, but I did 1-1-2, and then I went for the grab, and he went for a flawless block, and my grab beat him. And that started happening consistently, and I just found that a bit weird. I don't know if that's because he was doing up 2, because this guy, I was playing a guy just now, and it was, as you could probably see, he was beating me with up 3. He was beating out my grab, so maybe that's just an up 2 thing, which is fine. But the problem with the flawless block mechanic is that it's not consistent across the board. The way you fix it is that, the way I would fix it is that you either open up more holes in characters that are very oppressive, or you remove it. You close the holes in characters that you've put loads in, because it's just not fair across the board. I mean, the first one you have to start with is Cabal. Cabal has none. You have to put some gaps in there. There has to be some gaps in there. It's just weird that they overlooked that. I'm not really sure why. Maybe they didn't overlook it. If they didn't, overlooking it would be bad when you're making a competitive game, but it's even worse if they did it intentionally. And I'd love to hear the logic behind why they did it. but I probably never will, because anytime someone brings up something with NRS, they seem to shut it down very quickly. And I would love to have a discussion with them. Obviously my YouTube channel is not the biggest YouTube channel on the platform, so they're probably not going to talk to someone like me. But I would just love to know why the flawless spot mechanic is implemented poorly, because this game is very mashy. It's not balanced across every character. The person that is attacking can just continuously keep mashing, and you know, it just becomes a bit of a mess. We've all seen those messy MK11 games where it's like down one, down one, down one, down one, down one, down one. The flawless spot mechanic doesn't really help the situation much, if I'm honest. I'm not really sure what else to say about the mechanic. It's kind of just disappointing it's disappointing. It doesn't affect the characters that I use very much, but it does affect other characters, and I think it just hurts the game and it turns people off it. So that's all I've got to say about that. I'm probably going to talk about the get up mechanic next, because I think that's a load of shit as well. But until then guys, peace.